Hi guys, welcome to the very first video in our advanced series. I'm going to go very quickly in this video and touch on some of the installation options that you're going to want to use to get a basic lightweight Debian installation for servers. That's optimal for server installations. So that's what we're going to cover in this video. Quick note, I'm going to assume you know how to obtain Debian, make a bootable disk, and get into the BIOS of your system or into a boot menu of some sort so that you can get your system booted up. If you do not know how to do these things, some basic information on those topics are available in the beginner series video. If you feel lost or have any questions, try checking out the beginner series video first. That might clarify some things, hopefully, and get you on the right track. But I'm going to assume if you're in it for the advanced series and you want to do the server install version of this, that you know a little bit more about what you're doing than if you were watching the beginner series. Another thing is, I was thinking about touching on some of the more advanced options in the installer, such as automated installs and such in this video. I'm actually going to postpone that stuff to a later video and just get the server up and running so we can move on with the series a little bit more. You know, automated installs and such are a pretty advanced topic for this early in the series, I feel, so I'm probably going to make an expert install video that will depict some of that stuff much later in the series. There are some advanced options you can look at in the installer, though. So you can do an expert install. You can also do rescue mode. And then, of course, this is where you would do an automated install, but we are not currently set up for that as we require an answer file, essentially. And the expert install is like an Incursus sort of console-based installer. You can use that, of course, as well if you want. The expert installs, though, are what they say. They're extremely fine-grained, I guess, and very involved. So for most situations, you probably will not require an expert install. For most cases, a graphical or just a regular install is just fine. So we're going to go ahead and take the graphical install. That's perfectly fine, even though we're going to be setting up a console-based system. And the reason that's okay to do is because the graphical install just gives you graphics and mice for your install process. It does not mean that you're going to end up with a GUI at the end of the installation. We're going to choose our language, of course. I'm just going to breeze through these prompts. Just basically take what's applicable to you, and we'll let the installer come up with the modules and everything that is loading up. It shouldn't take but just a second. During the longer loader bars, though, I'm absolutely going to just forward through the installation, so you're not going to actually have to sit there and wait. So I'm just going to cut it, so you'll probably see the progress bar jump really fast. And just, you know, be aware that that's what's going on. We'll let it figure out our networking. If you're doing this on a server, probably a virtual machine, I suspect, then you'll probably get your networking auto-detected and everything should go absolutely fine. Here, we're going to go Debian, I guess server is fine for our host name here. Let's actually add a VM at the end. And the domain name, I'm going to leave it blank in my case because I'm not going to use a domain here. If you have a domain or you know what a domain is, of course, add that information. Here, we're going to leave our root password blank. In the beginner video, I pointed out what happens when you leave the root password blank here. It's basically going to set up sudo and join the first account that you create in this installer to the sudoers group for you. So we're going to do that. Our name will be my name. You make it whatever is optimal or good for you. And then we'll set a password, which will be password. Hopefully in Buster they don't make these tabbable because that drives me crazy. I used to like to just tab and then hit enter, which I can't do anymore because of the fact that the tab stops on the check marks there as well. Anyway, so we're going to choose our time zone, whatever's applicable to you. It's going to detect our disks, and we'll start our partitioning setup. Okay, so here you're going to do whatever's applicable to you. I'm going to go ahead and set up LVM. LVM is Logical Volume Manager, so if you want the flexibility of having the Logical Volume Manager set up, definitely do that. I encourage it, especially on a server where you might need to grow a partition or you know, add storage or shrink storage or move things around. You can also do encrypted if that is something you want to do, but that's a little beyond the scope of this particular video. So we're not going to handle encryption here. We're just going to do guided, use entire disk and set up LVM. I'm going to choose the only device I have, which I provisioned with 10 gigs, 10.7 gigs there. So that should be good. I encourage you guys to separate out your home var and temp partitions or manually manage your partition scheme if you like. I am actually not going to do that. I'm just going to leave all files in one partition, and I'm going to do that because I have such a small disk and this is a demonstration machine. But you should probably separate out your home partition. Once we get in, I'll talk a little bit more about what you can do to manually fix it if you like. So we'll go to continue here. We're going to choose yes, and then that's going to get us into our partitioner. Now in here you can see you've got your disk and your LVM partition, and then up here you've got an LVM swap and an LVM ext4 partition that will be on the root file system. So here we can actually configure the Logical Volume Manager if you want to do something like break it out or whatever. So if you go to continue there, we choose yes, and then configure your Logical Volume Manager. You can do display configuration details, and you can see, you know, your logical volumes and how they're laid out. You can also do create a volume group if you've got a different volume group you want for some reason. You can delete a logical volume or extend a volume group, or you can hit finish. In my case, I would have to delete a logical volume before I get the option to create one because I have no more storage left in my volume group because I've used all of it for the root partition. If I did delete this logical volume, which actually I can go ahead and do that. Let's delete the logical volume. We'll delete root, okay? Because I'll go ahead and show you how to create one. So now I'll get create a logical volume, which I can then do. I'll choose my volume group, which should be the only one available unless you've created more. Here you're going to name it. I'll just name it root again. And then you'll set the size. So if you wanted to create more than one, leave yourself some space for the rest. I am just going to maximize it again. I just wanted to show you guys how to manually work with the volume groups. So that will give me back my, my root volume, which I can display, and you can see that it is in fact there again. And then I'll go down to finish and continue. This will bring me back to my partition scheme, which you'll now see I have this root volume here. And if you created more and you don't have them set to use to mount somewhere, you can actually double click this. It'll bring you in here and you can set your mount point. I of course want it to be root, but if you made one for home, you would put it, you know, to home or whatever. I'm going to leave it root, of course. And here you can give it mount options if you like. So you can tell it, you know, mount with no A time, and you can see the description next to each one, which kind of gives you some ideas of what they do. Generally the defaults are fine. You know, if you're setting up a solid state, you might want no A time or something like that, but defaults I think include that now. I'm not 100% positive. That's something you can Google. But I just wanted to show you that that is where those options are. Also, this use as up here, this is the type of file system you want to use as, so you can actually see what is supported on Debian 9. So you have ext4, the ext3 and 2, which you probably won't need, Btrfs, which I discourage, JFS, which I discourage, XFS, which I discourage. Actually, I discourage everything except for ext4, pretty much. I would use ext4 in probably 90% of the cases. Or swap area if you're setting up a swap. But anyway, you'll choose your volume there, and then you can either do erase data on this partition if you want to format the partition to, you know, to be 100% clean, or just set up done and let the formatter handle everything on its own. Anyway, once you've got your partitions set up the way you like, big hint, you're going to want at least something mounted to root, and you're probably going to want some form of swap. Although, you know, in 2018, if you've got a system with lots of RAM, swap is kind of debatable. But maybe set yourself up with a little something if you're under 8 gigs, just in case. And then you're going to finish partitioning and write changes to the disk once you've got everything the way you want it. The big thing is you're definitely going to want this ext boot, because that's where basically grub's going to go, or your your boot stuff is going to go, of course. And then you're going to want this LVM partition, because that is actually where these volumes live. They're all here, stored here. And your first disk should always kind of look like this, because your first disk is required to have this boot partition on it. There are other partition schemes you can go with, but that's probably the best one if you only have one disk. That's kind of what you got to deal with. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hit finish and write changes to disk. And we're going to go ahead and tell it yes to confirm this is in fact the point of no return. Once you do this, the mounted file system at root failed. You may resume partitioning from the partitioning menu. Something I did to this root partition it did not like. So I'm not sure what I did, but we're going to go to guide it again and just have it set up the volume on its own again. Yeah, it's probably because I was going back and forth between those menus and I might have missed committing a change somewhere or something. I'm not 100% sure why that volume failed. There we go. Yeah, it was just some weird thing I did. I probably just didn't commit a change, or maybe when I was backing out of stuff I didn't select something I should have. But the gist is that's how you configure logical volumes and logical volume partitions and in those schemes. I'll cover that a lot more in detail later on in the LVM video, especially once you get the system up and running, how to manage and migrate and change your logical volumes and extend them and all that stuff. So we're gonna get into those deep dive style in a future video. So if you feel like I kind of glossed over LVMs, I absolutely glossed over LVMs. There's a ton to talk about there, and mostly I just want to get into the system. But in the LVM video, I will absolutely discuss in very fine detail what everything is, what a volume group is, what a logical volume is, and how they work, and how to add a volume to a volume group, and how to remove a volume from a volume group, how to shrink a system, how to grow a system, all that good stuff. And if you're wondering why, say, I advise against XFS when I was going through the partitioner, it's because you can't shrink XFS. So unless you're using a file system that is just ridiculously big, you're not going to bust what ext4 is capable of. And the benefits of XFS are sort of negligible in that regard. I mean, technically speaking, it's supposed to be more optimized for larger file systems, and it can, in fact, do much more storage, much bigger storage, but you're talking above terabytes. Like, you're talking exabytes. It's huge, the amount of storage that that you need to be at before it even really matters as far as the total theoretical capacity of your disk. Versus ext4, which it can't handle as big as you can get with XFS, but it can handle enough that I would say the vast majority of people, unless you're running a massive data center, will not need to worry about it. And even in massive data centers, generally, you don't need to worry about it. Not for normal servers and systems. Generally, you only have that kind of storage in like a promise rate or something, or some massive volume that you've got set up somewhere, where you've got LUNs and stuff. But on normal servers, you're generally getting a portion of that that's mounted as a hard disk to the system. So realistically speaking, ext4 is generally just fine, and the flexibility of being able to shrink a partition is kind of nice to have, in my personal opinion. But that's just me. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and pause this video so that the installation goes quicker on you guys' end, and we'll pick this back up in a minute. Okay, so like I said before, this is in the beginner video. This page basically asks if you want to scan another DVD or CD. If you downloaded more than one in the CD set, go ahead and do so. I did not, and we're not going to support covering that. It's pretty easy to do though. So anyway, I'm just going to click continue here. We are in fact going to use a network mirror. Pick the one that's nearest, closest, best for you, whatever that may be. I'm going to choose the US, and I like debian.org, but you can use any one you want, and it's probably best that we spread them out so that we don't tax one server too much. We don't need a proxy, though if you have one, you can set one up there. Basically, it's an apt cache proxy. I explained this in the beginner video, but generally speaking, if you have an apt cache proxy, it means that you basically talk to a cache server before you talk to the internet, and if the packages aren't there or they're outdated, it'll go out and grab them and pull them down, and you'll download them from the internet like normal. But if they are there, then you'll download them from the app cacher instead, which should be closer and be faster, and therefore speed up your updates and installs considerably. So if you have one, use one. If you don't know what it is, we'll cover maybe setting one up in a later video. I'm not sure yet, yeah, let me know if you guys are interested in seeing how to set one of those up, because I absolutely have one and it's awesome. Alright, anyway, click continue or leave it blank if you don't have one. And we'll let it configure the package manager. It's probably going to ask for popularity contest here in a second, I bet. Hopefully it does that somewhat soon. Give it just a second. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. And there's that popularity contest I was talking about. I'm not going to participate in the server, mainly because this is a demonstration. You can, if you like, make that decision up for yourself, and whatever you decide to do, I guess, is cool. And click continue. And I'm going to go ahead and pause it again. And by the way, if you are having issues with, your video becoming out of sync with my video or whatever because I'm pausing and you're obviously having to wait through load bars, if you're trying to do this with me, just hit the pause button, obviously. Alright, so for this, what we're going to do is we're going to set up the SSH server, we're going to nix the print server because we don't need it, and we're going to nix the Debian desktop environment. This will bring us up to a straight-up console. So, click continue, and then now I'm going to pause the video so you guys don't have to watch a load bar. Alright, so now we're going to do the grub bootloader. We want to go ahead and install that to the master boot record. And if you're using UEFI, which you absolutely can, you'll have that set up there too. So set that up on your first disk or whichever one you're installing root to generally. In my case, that's dev VDA. You'll have SDA if you're on a solid state, or not solid state, I'm sorry, SATA hard drive on like a laptop or a desktop, or maybe an HDA if you're on a really, really ancient box or something. But if you're on a virtual machine, a lot of times nowadays you'll get a VDA. So let's go ahead and continue that. And this shouldn't take but just a second, hopefully. And that's it. That's the last screen. So now we're just going to reboot the system. Hit continue. And it should reboot. Go ahead and tell it to boot up. And if all went well, you can ignore the LVMTAD error. That's normal. It's weird. Hopefully it goes away in Buster. It has not yet in Stretch. And that's it. You should have a login prompt. Password. And get to sudo tag. I should get us root. There we go. And there you go. So that is a console-based installation of Debian. It gets us a very lightweight system that you can either make into a server or you can install a desktop of your choice. Like if you wanted to do something very custom like OpenBox at EpiPanel, if you know what you're doing there, or Awesome Window Manager, and not have anything else on there in addition to it, that's how you would do it. You'd come to this and then you would install it from here. that's it. That gets you into the server. The next video, I think, what did I say that was going to be? It's going to be a command line introduction, so that's clever. All right. So we're going to do the command line introduction. I'll probably do it from the server side so that I can blow up the prompt a bit better, make it look better, have copy and paste available, that sort of thing. This will be in the desktop series anyway, so that's the next one I'm going to upload. The next advanced video is going to be app and software management, so you'll get to learn some advanced app techniques in it, and I'm actually going to do a pretty big deep dive on apt and how to set it up. And in the meantime, we're also going to configure the server to be we're going to configure the server so that it's got its repositories and everything. So we're going to kill, we're going to take care of all those different tasks all at once there. So it's going to be great. It'll be a nice deep dive on apt. So if you're sketchy on apt, or if you think you know apt really well, or the different apt programs really well, see if you can learn anything from what I'm going to talk about in that video, because I'm going to try to be very thorough. All right. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.